In this episode of the WrestleTalk News, WWE Raw Ticket Sale Crisis, a few major AEW contracts are expiring soon, the Backstage reaction to CM Punk and MJF segment, and more. Subscribe to this channel and enable notification to always on for daily wrestling news.
Support WrestleTalk!
When it comes to the wrestling war between WWE and AEW, we tend to always look at the ratings and those all-important 18 to 49 demographics. Important if you're an advertiser looking to sell your products to the youth, that is. What we sometimes overlook are ticket sales for shows in the same arena. But of course, that could just be because we've all been locked indoors for the last 2 years and our mums have only just let us recently come out to play. Not if Omicron has anything to say about it. Ticket sales for WWE shows since they returned to the road with Money in the Bank were seemingly going pretty well. I mean, we've all been cooped up, so we're desperate to go to any show we can. We've just been sitting at home watching YouTube videos. Thanks for that, by the way. But that's now showing signs of slowing down. It was reported ahead of Survivor Series that WWE was struggling to sell tickets for that event, despite being one of the big 4 WWE shows and in their home market of New York. In early October, when WWE would have expected to sell around 7,000 of its tickets, they'd only sold 5,000. Some of which would have been complimentary freebies to business partners, and a reported 2,000 of which were bought by scalpers for the resale market. Who would have thought that not promoting or building a TV show would lead to poor ticket sales? In the end, the show did pretty well, though it was down from previous events at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. And hopefully, it can turn around for tonight's edition of Monday Night Raw. Because while you may think this is just another episode of WWE's weekly 3-hour TV show, which sometimes feels longer than Peter Jackson's Get Back documentary, yes, I am gonna bring it up, look how handsome Paul McCartney looks. This Raw has been one that wrestling journalists and critics have been keeping an eye on. Because tonight's wrestling show isn't just the only wrestling show held at the new UBS Arena in Long Island, as in just 8 days' time, AEW are running it for Dynamite and Rampage, and one of them is doing significantly better than the other. In the early ticket sales clash, AEW were outpacing WWE by quite some distance, leading WWE to take some drastic measures, slashing ticket prices in half back in October with upper decker seats going from $30 to $15. They added Roman Reigns to the show, likely just there for the live crowd and not appearing on TV. They just announced Edge for the show. They've done numerous 2-for-1 sales and have now just added a 3-for-1 sale. Dave Meltzer adds that adding Reigns to the show really helped, as by that point they'd only sold 2,200 tickets, which was described as really bad. Meltzer added they may end up with 5,500 people in the building, which isn't as good as All Elite Wrestling. AEW will be running the UBS Arena next week and have currently sold 8,500 tickets as of last week. According to Wrestling Ticks on Twitter, that's 74% of the available tickets. The latest on WWE's run in the same building is 73% sold, but WWE have only set up their building for 7,400 seats compared to AEW's 11,600. As Dave Meltzer noted on Wrestling Observer Radio, it is something that AEW is outselling WWE in their home metropolitan area. Wrestling Takes also note that WWE are moving a lot of the seating around, including removing some of the top level upper decks and adding in a few second tier decks. As they note, they're looking for pictures from fans in attendance as there's been a lot of moving parts. It actually recalls a time a few years ago when images circulated online of terribly attended episodes of both Raw and SmackDown. But if New York is a WWE market, and this is the first wrestling show in a new building, which is usually a huge driver of ticket sales, especially when it's WWE Raw, why are sales not as good for WWE as they are AEW? One could argue that All Elite Wrestling is currently the hotter product, sure, but there's actually more to it. As Dave Meltzer put it, it's a case that WWE has run New York too often, having just run the area last week for Survivor Series and Raw. Meltzer adds that the same thing is actually happening to AEW in Chicago, noting that the pre-sales for the February show in the Windy City are nothing like any of their Chicago shows ever. It's their weakest pre-sale in Chicago to date by a good amount. What do you think of WWE's ticket situation? Let me know in the comments down below. But how will AEW continue to sell buildings this well if they don't have their big names signed to big contracts? We've been talking a lot on the WrestleTalk news about contracts expiring, as it's happening quite a lot over in WWE, with Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson's contracts expiring, which left them open to join the competition, as well as the news of Kyle O'Reilly and Johnny Gargano's deals coming up in December and Kevin Owens early next year. But it's not just WWE that have talent under contracts with expiry dates. Back when All Elite Wrestling kicked off in 2019, several talents like MJF signed 5-year deals with the company, but others took slightly shorter deals. And that includes major name talent like the Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes, and former AEW champion Kenny Omega. The Bucks' deal was set to expire in January 2022, but it was recently announced that they've signed a new 2-year deal that will keep them with the company to the end of 2024. The same cannot be said for Rhodes and Omega yet. According to Wade Keller at PW Torch, some of the talent that have their deals expiring are looking to use this as leverage to either get a better deal with AEW or even explore other options. There are people I've talked to in AEW who are looking at their contracts and wondering what their deal is going to be next time when their first deal comes up, and how much leverage they're going to have with WWE or New Japan, or heck, GCW with their ticket sales these days, or the indie scene as an option to book yourself. It's gonna be interesting to watch. Speaking of ticket sales, GCW recently sold out the Hammerstein Ballroom, which is an incredible achievement. Keller, of course, doesn't name who those talents are, but does note that Cody Rhodes and Kenny Omega have yet to sign their new deals. I have heard the intent and hope is that Cody and Kenny and Tony have all come to deals. There's not signs that any of them want to leave or are disgruntled to the point that they shouldn't be able to come to an extension, but I don't know the situation. Keller goes on to theorize that maybe they have signed extensions quietly, but then adds he's pretty sure that hasn't happened based on who he's spoken with. Sticking with AEW for just a moment, and one segment that caught the wrestling world alight this past week was the war of words between CM Punk and MJF on Dynamite. It led to a whopping 61% of the WrestleTalk podcast audience voting the show 5 out of 5. And it wasn't just our viewers who were impressed. Mark Henry told Busted Open Radio, "I was so unbelievably amazed. There's 30 wrestlers sitting around that area and everyone is popping. If you're popping wrestlers, you've done something in your life. You won. I had to get up, walk out to the crowd to feel it, because that is why people go to wrestling." Henry added that it was arguably the best verbal jousting he'd ever seen, and he's not seen a match that has entertained him as much as that promo segment. To round off this episode of the WrestleTalk News, I would like to direct you to AEW's recent YouTube upload of wrestlers discussing their battles with mental health, including Ryan Nemeth, Powerhouse Hobbs, Vicky Guerrero, Amanda Huber, The Blade, and Dax Harwood of FTR. It's a brilliant video with a very, very important message. We've linked to it in the video description down below. I'd also like to direct people over to our Support Each Other page on WrestleTalk.com, which has numbers you can call if you do want to reach out for help. Support WrestleTalk, support each other. And speaking of support each other, please go and send all your love and support to Jessie Davin on Twitter. She's a wonderful human being going through an incredibly hard time in the moment, and she could do with your well wishes. Fight, Jessie, fight. You'll be home with your kids in no time. You've got this.
So Survivor Series wasn't it? When the highlight of your show was a Wetherspoons parking lot scrap between two drunk mums and Grandpa's magic egg, you know you've hit your creative stride. And speaking of a creative stride, I am rapidly running out of ways to introduce 10 random news stories that weren't quite big enough to cover in the main news episode throughout the week. The struggle is real.